All right, guys, so I've got a strict muscle up to analyze here with you, and it's Steve Backshall. Now, Steve is an amazing athlete, very strong, great core strength, and really aware of his body. He's done muscle ups before, but here we're looking at trying to tidy it up and understand the mechanics that are giving him that really nice, strict muscle up that a lot of people pursue. So I'm gonna let Steve's muscle up play through here. Oh! Yeah, buddy. So, as I said, a lot of people that have practiced their muscle ups have definitely got to that moment. And we're going to have a look now at a few differences between when Steve's doing his muscle up and when I'm doing mine. So, straight before I guys to the first point of lift. Here we go. So I'll bring Steve back a little bit. All right, so this is us about to go up. Now, if I get us to kind of first moment of interest, so about 90 degrees in the elbows. So yeah, about the same position there. And this is an interesting place to have a look because there's a lot of similarities, right? I mean, Steve's got probably a better force grip than me there. He's got 90 degrees as an elbow like me. I think one of the more interesting lines to me here is how similar the angle of our spines are. So you see that big yellow line, really, really similar angle. And I think more importantly, and you guys would have heard me say this on a lot of the videos where I'm analyzing muscle ups, is what are we lifting? When we're doing Olympic rings training, we are lifting our hips. So if your hips come away from that red line, you're lifting more weight than you need to, right? So in this position, you've got our angle of our spine quite similar, and you can see our hips are definitely both on that red line. So this is good. This is a good position for us to kind of be in. So now I'll play through a little bit further. Okay. So, one of the things you've heard me talk about previously is keeping space between the rings and your shoulders. So if I have a little red line here between Steve's kind of wrist and his shoulder, and then we look at the red line between my wrist and my shoulder, there's a definite difference there, okay? And I mean, the other way I can kind of show you that is if we have a look at the angle. You don't have as not much power from a kind of short angle, an acute angle, as you do from something that's a little bit more open. Now you can see there is a huge difference in the angle of our arms. And why is that? I've kept myself leaning back a little bit longer. The distance between, I guess, our noses and the rings is, again, quite different kind of thing. So that's one of the things in this position where Steve still has his hips pretty much on that vertical line again. If I bring back our kind of training lines, you can see that, to me, you're still in a situation where you could pull off a muscle up, and even with that short angle in Steve's elbow, 46 degrees on Steve's elbow versus 81 on mine, he could still pull that off because he can still create the power to get himself up and over. He's got to get that shoulder up and over the ring to be able to clear it. But again, if I let the videos play on just a little bit further, you're going to see, I think, what becomes a bit more of a challenge to finish the muscle up here. And it's really, really subtle. And in some respects, Steve almost looks like he's closer to kind of finishing the muscle up than me, because if you look at that, circle, his head's through. My head has not gone through the rings yet. But there's again lots of similarities. The height of our shoulders, I think, is pretty much right on in terms of, I don't think I'm higher than Steve at this point. Looking at those red lines, our shoulders are at the similar kind of level. But the big difference that for me is the reason that Steve's gonna fail his muscle up, and it's the reason that I actually see a lot of people get completely stuck in that position. As we've already said it, right? You are lifting your hips when you're doing a muscle up. And if you remember that yellow line I drew for you guys earlier, You know, mine's definitely come up a little bit, but you can still see I am definitely leaning back. And that, for me, I think is why Steve is going to fill that muscle up. And why so many people do. If I play it on, we can now see that Steve's spine is literally vertical behind the rings. And what that means is all of this kind of space, where are we? All of this space that's in between the red and the yellow lines is magnifying, increasing the leverage of what Steve is trying to lift. So if you catch yourself doing a strict muscle up, and at that point of transition, your hips are behind your vertical line. So, you know, here we can see Steve's hips are behind that red line, the central line of the rings. You're 10 times heavier. And for you to then get your shoulder up and over the ring is going to feel nearly impossible. So if I clear all of that, and you guys look here at Steve's shoulders, they just can't go forward. Or more importantly, they can't go up from that position. He's got that crazy acute angle in the elbow, which is going to make it super hard for him to create any power out of his triceps to lift himself up and over. But yeah, right now, that shoulder has nowhere to go. You just can't get there. And now, Steve's spine is even angled forward slightly. So he's going to have to lift his hips, his butt up and over, which I think is going to feel, pretty tricky. Whereas if we compare that to mine, and again, if I draw the same shoulder, you look at this kind of phase of the lift. My shoulder is above the rings, but as I go forward, it's going up and up and up, and now I'm over. And the forearm is vertical. I finish my muscle up. And I think the difference there is my spine's still leaning backwards. As I start to transition forward, I make sure my shoulder is above the rings because I'm pushing down through my triceps so hard. And I think that more kind of open elbow position is giving me a little bit more strength in my triceps to keep me a little bit higher. But all of that is made possible because at absolutely no point in my lift are my hips gonna come off that red line. Because if you come away from that red line while you're going up, or while you expect to transition your shoulders from behind and below to above and in front of the rings, you're making it harder for yourselves. So, rule number one for all of our kind of technical analysis and everything we can talk about with developing your pull and developing your force grip and developing your dip and all the rest. If you let your hips come off that red line, you're going to find it very hard to complete a nice, strict muscle up. So that's the takeaway for what I think a muscle up probably wants to look like. But let's have a crack at that, Steve, and see what happens next time, buddy.